drums. Okay. Off and running. Ivor Scott here. We have a guest today. We're going to, right off the top, Robbie J is our guest. Robbie, hi.
I just made a mess. I just knocked my coffee all over the place, fellas.
No.
It's all good.
Oh, and it was that mug you were just showing it. Show the mug to everybody.
Yeah, I know. At least I didn't break it.
Our audience on YouTube. Oh, yeah. Look
There
at
you
that.
go.
The Edge era. There you go.
That's my era, fellas.
There you go.
Yeah. Let me just, before we jump into, I'll explain for those on YouTube, my ridiculous outfit, because there's, with, all the sports going on right now between, the basketball's still on, and there's baseball now, and there's hockey playoffs and everything. I thought you'd be wearing Sabre stuff.
You know what? I ordered some Sabre stuff. It's not here yet. And my neighbor, the lovely neighborhood kids, because I've got lovely neighborhood children. There's the two little girls who started the dog walking service, so they walk Ella. But the little boy, who's the brother of one of the girls who walks Ella, started a car washing service. And I saw him last night, and he goes, I said, "Yeah, about to watch the hockey?" He goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Go Habs." I said, "Well, you just lost your opportunity to wash my car."
Love it. Love it. So just this kit, this outfit that I'm wearing, this silliness, is a retro throwback to what cyclists would wear back in the day. So it's the Giro d'Italia. Everybody's heard of the Tour de France, of course. There are basically 3 grand tours. These are 3-week long bicycle races. There's, of course, the Tour de France. There's one in Spain called the Vuelta a España, which is in August. And then there's the Giro d'Italia, which is the Tour of Italy, which starts on Friday. I'm a big cycling nut, so I'm one of those idiots that, yes, actually watches cycling, and when I find the time. Anyway, they used to wear silly stuff like this. And
Scott, I would highly recommend, because I'm going back to Italy in August, but you maybe take a side trip over there and visit Switzerland and do some biking over there, because it's, as you know, it's very flat there, and you can do leisurely rides all over Switzerland. It's absolutely amazing. Honest to God, I was going, are these people, I would have rather, you've heard me say this phrase before, I would rather go to jail than ride up what those people do in Switzerland.
It's insane.
Unbelievable.
It's insane. And Northern Italy is gorgeous, and they've got all the mountains there and everything.
Yeah, same. Yeah, beautiful.
Castelli's a big bike brand. These are the, of course, Italian flag colors here. And Ivor, you spend your money on records and box sets and stuff like. I spend stupid money on cycling shit. Like, cycling's expensive hobby, by the way.
Yes.
For anyone thinking of getting into it. Yes. Okay. So, Robbie, for those that don't know, tell everybody a little bit. Try to keep it short, buddy. We haven't got a lot of time. Tell everybody who you are and your connection with us, especially CFNY.
Well, I'm Rob Johnston. Some people might know me from the ongoing history of new music. That's what I've been working on for a long time. But I've been associated with the station. I was associated with it from the fall of '89 through pretty much 2015 as an employee. The weird thing is, I never worked with Ivor because Ivor had left.
Right.
But I got to know Ivor through the record label Live.
Very much so. We became very tight.
Very much. We did a number of projects over the years. So many projects over the years. And Scott, I met Scott when I first started there, and you were doing all kinds of stuff back then. So I started in promotions. I worked my way up into on-air ops, doing overnights, sitting on with Deadly Headley's overnight show, We'll Come Again, Bad Boy, midnight to 2 to 6 a.m. on Sunday mornings. And then got into the production department and was a producer, commercial producer, imaging producer, creative director at one point. Just behind the scenes. I was the behind the scenes guy.
Yeah. So let me, on the production side of things, when you started, was it still cutting tape, old school? When did the digital thing come in? Was it? Okay. I wondered.
Digital was when we moved downtown.
Really?
We were still multi-track until we left Brampton. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had a question about that too. We should maybe dive into that, because they did a post this week that it was 30 years. We figured, there's been so many people jumping in on this about when CFNY moved from Brampton, the home of when the station started and everything. And of course, it started in a little yellow house, and then it moved to nicer facilities at 83 Kennedy Road. And then eventually grew up and moved to the big city, which we are pretty sure it was 30 years ago, around May.
I can
So
tell
what's
you
your
exactly.
recollection?
But it was
Because
just the locations, and that's why you reached out and why you're on the program, because you saw one of our postings and went, "Wait a minute,
I
set that
have some
straight."
inside information on that.
Yeah.
It was the 24th of May. Friday, the 24th of May was the last time we broadcast out of 83 Kennedy Road South. And I can tell you this for a fact because I was the last person to run anything out of the control room at 83 Kennedy Road South. I can't tell you the name of the song we played at 8:55 that night because it was probably something CanCon. Because we were flipping down to the Kingdom, right? Because we were going to go to the Kingdom. So that gave Geets enough time to unplug the hard drives. The entire music library was going to hard drive at that point in time. No CDs or vinyl were going to run out of Dundas. So we had these, I don't know how big the 9 gig, various 9 gig hard drives with the entire music library on them. Wow. Geets had to unplug them, carefully take them down to 1 Dundas Street, and then plug them in to run from 2 or 4 o'clock in the morning when the Kingdom ended to officially start at 1 Dundas Street. So that's why I know it was the 24th of May. I remember it as a Friday night.
It was interesting.
Actually, probably the live to air helped that whole transition, right?
Absolutely.
You had that window, right?
That was the entire rationale behind it, because we could flip. They did the live in Toronto from Bloor and Bathurst, I believe, until that night, and then we did the 1 hour back in Brampton, and then that gave them enough time to flip it through the live to air and then the overnight, so we could actually use the weekend to work at any bugs, so that by the time Monday morning rolled around, everything was running properly from 1 Dundas Street.
Okay. And interesting too. Sorry, Scott, that you were saying you couldn't remember that last song. We had somebody in Vancouver at the dock ask me, like, "Do you remember the first song you ever played on the radio station?" And I couldn't. I just didn't know for the life of me. Everybody sort of focuses on other things, and I'm just like, you got me. I don't know.
There were so many things going on at that moment in time, making sure we timed out, making sure we flipped the signal off down at there. Geets was in the control room, was like, the only reason I said CanCon, something Canadian, is because you always wanted to try and get as much CanCon as you could in to make up for the live to airs. Scott, you know a thing or two about that. So,
but you don't think of these things.
Little distracted at that moment in time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, there's chaos going on, so you don't remember let's all write this down and remember
one day
this
somebody
moment.
will want to know one day, right?
One day somebody will do a documentary and want to know what.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And then people expect us to know all this stuff, which is true. We should. And then it's like, gee, I do remember. I don't remember.
We're going through that with the book right now. And I'm being asked questions every day, left, right, and center. Well, you surely have a record of all the programming throughout the 80s, of everything that you ever had and all the programs on there. And I'm like, no, we don't.
I honestly, I wish I had written it down or made a mental note of it at the time. I mean, in this day and age, you just would have taken a picture of what was happening, what was going on, and what was then at the time.
And for that matter, too, what was the first song played from 1 Dundas, right?
Couldn't tell you.
Right.
Right.
I mean,
I don't know.
Okay, so can you clear up the other thing? Because from my understanding, there were 3 locations. There was Bloor and Bathurst, and then some portable before the street level 228 Yonge Street that people would most remember.
Yeah, there was Edge of Bloor and Bathurst, which came around 93. In 93, I'm pretty sure, because I know it was running for a fact in 94, 95, and 96. That was where we did most of Live in Toronto. Would be live from there. They'd flip from Brampton down to Live in Toronto, and they would do the show from there, which was great because then you could get a lot of musicians and bands and artists in to do live interviews with Kim and Bookie for Live in Toronto.
Right.
And then when we moved to 1 Dundas, we stopped at Bloor and Bathurst, and we created a studio at 204 Yonge Street. That was just a bit up. I wish I could remember exactly where it was, but I don't think it was too far from where 228 was. I think it was just a bit further down, up from where the Tower Records was. Same side of the street, though.
I remember that.
There was,
and
so it was a much smaller studio. It was much smaller, and
it was quite temporary. Really, it was wasn't it kind of a stopgap between one and the other, or?
Well, I Phil would have a better answer on that than I would. Okay. I know it was what we had, so we made use of it and made it run, and we had room to bring bands in and do live performances. And then around 99, the trailer came in at the Bay of Dundas, as we called it, at Bay and Dundas in the park, which is now the Canadian Tire and TMU building. Now, that was a Rockline radio trailer that Geets had acquired and
Oh,
operated it there for a bit of time while we moved out of 204 and built 228 Yonge Street.
Jesus.
Wow.
And then
This is
228
confusing. Yeah.
became the studio until they moved down to Chorus Key at Sugar Beach.
Now
Right.
the trailer couldn't have been there for that long because I mean I was
No, it
certainly
was there. It was there. I don't know, a number of months. I remember
Right.
it was there. I remember I know it was there in the summer of '99 because I remember the Chili Peppers after they did their performance on Yonge Street at Yonge and Dundas. They came and did an interview at the trailer in the park with George. I remember that.
Okay.
So, and again, these would all be sort of satellite studios. The radio station and all the rest of the staff are still back in Brampton until the 24th of May.
Well,
These
yes,
were just
for
sort
Blue
of
and Bathurst, yes.
live and some promotions done in these other places, right? Okay.
The other show we did out at Blue and Bathurst was the Thursday 30.
Okay.
Because I opted the Thursday 30 from Brampton for a number of years, around 93, 94. I did that show from there, and then Jason Barr did it. And we also did some all-request breakfasts and weekend mornings from Blue and Bathurst, because I would produce the all-request breakfast for Fowler, and he would be down at Blue and Bathurst. So the thing was, you couldn't run the show from there. Everything was still back in Brampton.
Right.
Right. You had to have an op back in Brampton to run the show on the back end. But when we moved downtown, that gave us the ability, especially when we moved to 228 Yonge Street. That's when most of the shows began running fully down at the street level studio. We had, by that point in time, the tech had got to the point you could run the computers. They may be up at the Dundas Tower, Yonge and Dundas, but you could run a long enough line that you could control everything from 228 Yonge Street.
And to the best of your recollection, the move went well. There were no glitches or issues.
Yeah, from what I remember, it was smooth. It went really, really well. I think that the biggest concern was that the hard drives wouldn't get banged up or bounced along the way because, back then hard drives aren't like what they are now. You had to be pretty careful with them and make sure that they didn't get bumped or knocked, so they stayed formatted and everything stayed where it needed to be.
Right. We wanted to ask you about some of your memories from the Spirit of Radio days. So I guess your very early days at CFNY and meeting people. And do you in the doc? You've seen the doc, of course. Yes.
Yep. Well, I've seen the 60. I haven't seen the 90. I really want to see the 90.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll send you a link so you can.
Oh, sweet.
I know you're
highly anticipating seeing that, Ivor.
To review. And I'm going to try and get you a link to some of the other stuff too, because those extras are quite cool too. But at least I'll send you the 86-minute version, which.
Oh, okay. So then seeing just the 60-minute version outside of what people have said that was missing, Pete and Gates and certain things, any comments about the doc or anything from your perspective that was sort of missing?
I thought it was good. Again, I'm sure a lot of what I would be looking for would be in the 90, right? Like the Pete and Gates stuff. More Kennedy Road South. I think that was a massive part of what the Edge or what CFNY was. At that point in time. But yeah, I think, it's hard for me to know what's missing until I really see what's in the 90. And I'm pretty sure everything I would think of is in that.
Yes.
I think for the most part, I mean, the feedback's been very, very positive where people going, wow, you really delivered. But a lot of it was just based on what we saw when just, feedback through, the Facebook sites and the Instagram and people just saying, hey, what about this, this, and this? And then, we felt, me in particular, it was a criminal that Gary Topp wasn't in there. So we added him in there. And we, I mean, the one thing that Scott and I still talk about that wasn't in there was there wasn't any Don Burns in there. And realistically, they couldn't find any real good footage of him, which, was a challenge in the 80s, but I think, 95% we got in that extended mix. And now with the extras that are on the Blu-ray and DVD, there's things in there that didn't originally appear that, like a Lee Carter interview, for example, which was really good, and some extended interviews with other people. A couple of other things like Men Without Hats and Spoons, which weren't in the original doc too. So I think now we're probably at the point where we've got most of the things that people would have wanted.
The only
it's
other
so
thing
hard when you're doing content and media to include everything everybody wants. You're always going to miss something. you know, we run into this sometimes with the ongoing history when we do the radio version, is that we've got, you know, 52 minutes to play with, right? It's an hour long show. We do it to 52 to allow for, you know, commercial breaks. However, the brilliance about the podcast is if I have to take anything out that doesn't fit the time, interview clips, whatever, it goes in.
Right.
It can live. It can live in there, right? Because we have that extra bit of time. But when you're trying to put something in to hit a specific, you know, time limit, it's not easy. So, you know, full power that you guys got what you could get into that 60-minute, but I'm really curious to see the 90.
I think you'll enjoy. I'm just a question about your podcast is, and you've lived with this a lot longer because you're, what are you, about 1,200, close to 1,200 episodes at this point. And it's Scott and Ivor's challenge is, you know, we're like, yeah, we're you know, we can play a little bit of music, and it's like, no, we can't. So we got, you know, we got our wrist slapped a couple of weeks back, and so we're taking the high road and just really concentrating on our playlist now. But how have you dealt with that over the years?
You know, when the funny thing about the podcast is we wanted to do it for a long time, and we were trying to figure out the best way to do it. And putting the music clips in, we're flying pretty close to the sun, but I think we're trying to perhaps make a fair use argument for it if it ever comes up. We only put 10-15 minute, we put 10-second clips in, right? Like a hook of a song, just to make the point, to arc the story as it goes through.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing about the ongoing history is, yeah, we're almost 1,200 radio shows in, and 450 of them are podcasts. And people ask, well, how could you put up this one or this one or this one? And the answer is, it might not transfer over well, because it's so old. The content is dated. You know, if we want to do I'm not going to put up a documentary on you know, on Oasis when they've reunited since then. You have to do an addendum to it. And honestly, some of it doesn't sound that great. Alan and I listened back to some of the earlier episodes, and it's like, oh, this isn't so good. You know, because over time, the technology changes, the mic quality changes, the way I produce it changes, the processing changes, all of it changes. So
every time Ivor and I play a clip of ourselves from the 80s on CFNY,
Scott sounds like, boy, does he ever sound like he's at Humber College. I'm not far off.
It's so funny.
Those right there. Like,
I'll pull some episodes from even 15 years ago, and Alan sounds different, you know.
Yes.
So we can get away with some of them, but you know, it's been interesting because I think for the radio show, the podcast has given it a massive new life. We have people reaching out saying, I've been looking for X episode for so long. I'm glad to see that it's up, because I'll go back into the archives and pull something from 5-10 years ago or whatever and put it up if it's relevant. I get friends of mine saying, oh, my kids are listening to it now. Okay, well, that's fantastic, but boy, I feel old.
Well, it certainly helped us when we've been out on the road, because Alan has that recognition factor, and we get up like, who the hell are those other guys up there? I mean, not really, but you know, it helps that they all, you know, most of these people come out and they do listen to Alan. Although I will say that Brother Bill was on CFOX a week and a half ago, and the first thing the CFOX morning show goes, oh, is Alan Cross going to hog the spotlight? Like, he's on stage. I'm like, oh, great.
Well, speaking of ongoing and Alan, because Alan's coming up this fall will be 40 years since he started at CFNY. And my question to you, Robbie, is when did you first meet Alan? And were you there at the beginning of the ongoing? And your memory of meeting Alan the first time?
So dear, you know, isn't it ironic? The first thing I did at the station, I called him because I was looking to do some interning so I could get some experience to apply to colleges and universities, you know, for RTA and whatnot. So I called up CFNY, and they said, yeah, we take volunteers in. And the first thing I did was answering the request line and writing down the requests for the all request nooner. And who was hosting the nooner at that time? Alan Cross. So weirdly, the first person I kind of started working with was Alan. And here we are, how many ever years later. I didn't start the ongoing history till, you know, winter, spring, January, February, March-ish of 95. Craig Venn did the first 100 and some so episodes, and then he moved on to be a morning show producer at The Fan with Derringer. And I had been bugging Jim and Jamie and Stu about getting into production, and I guess my persistence paid off, and they gave me a shot. And along with that came the ongoing history.
Yeah. Pretty much from the beginning, right? Because it started 93, 94?
93, February 93. Like I said, Craig did about the first 100 and some episodes, 110, and I've done the 975 since then. Wow. I guess I'm closing in on 1,000 pretty soon.
We should have a special event at Course Key, Rob. That was a good one for Alan's 1,000th celebration.
Yep.
One thing we wanted to ask you, and I know you're limited for time, and so are we on our podcast. We're trying to not run our podcast. That's another challenge for us. We like to go on and on and on.
I know.
Yes. But very quickly, so you worked at HMV. This was before? Sorry, or when did you work at HMV?
Yeah. So it was funny. I was thinking about this the other day. At one point in time, 35 years ago right now, one point in time, I was working at HMV 333 Yonge Street. I was doing promotional stuff for the CFNY Edge, Modern, whatever we were at that point in time. And I was just about to start as a production assistant, stagehand, summer worker at the Ontario Place Forum. So I was working HMV, the Forum, and like 3 big music things at the same time, which was really weird. So yeah, I saw this ad in Now Magazine or the Eye Weekly about HMV's opening a new store on Yonge Street, and I was going to TMU Ryerson at the time, so I would see this being built, and they were hiring people. So I called them up and went to their head office for this interview on a weeknight in end of April, and hired on the spot, and worked at 333 from before it opened till off and on till about 95, 96. I was working the main floor there. I was a VJ booth at one point in time. Yeah, so I was there at the beginning, as it were.
Now, tell me something. Because you were also working at the Edge, did you get paid a little bit more? Did that help?
No, I don't think that ever came into the conversation.
Because you were still working at the Edge too, right? At the same time.
That's what I'm saying. I just said you're working at the Edge.
Yeah.
When I worked at Sam the Record Man at Bramalea City Center, everybody was getting like $275, but I got $325 because I was working at CFNY, and they thought I would know more than the average.
Go back and renegotiate that.
Nice one, Ivor.
It was a really, really cool. I mean, everybody knew the store. It was a cool place to work. It was a great, like the station, there was an amazing cast of people there at the store. Still remain, we still remain in contact. There's a, veterans of HMV or veterans of 333 Yonge Street face group page. Great people, Metal Tim Henderson, Karen Pace, Dan Reinish, Steve Hoy, Denise Zumak, Bud, Tracy, Jennifer Hurst. They just people you keep in contact with and you run across all the time. Paul Alofs was the president at the time, a great, fantastic leader.
Remember that? Baloney to Sony. He was having issues with that. See, the campaign, Baloney to Sony. I know most of those guys that you worked with. Tim, obviously, like that really was, a great place for metal. Also very respectable. The classics and jazz section probably became the best in the city. It was fantastic. And of course, the basement with all the hip hop stuff. I don't know if you were there for the Foxy Brown Inn store.
I remember that. I remember hearing about that. I was there that day, but I remember hearing about
the most product ever stolen from the store that day. But it was also delayed by about 4 hours too. So people just sort of put stuff in their pockets. But I mean, and Steve Hoy, who ran your video department, he was absolutely an amazing guy to deal with down there. So I mean, and our bands absolutely loved going into that store. I mean, they formerly would go to Sam's all the time, but once 333 got there, it was like, hey, away we go, right? So I took Josh.
I remember
had a great time in there.
I remember the day it opened really, really well. I was standing on the main floor, to the left of the escalator or the stairs, because there was a stairs in the escalator, and everyone inside the store was excited because we had spent weeks, stocking this thing. And for some reason, I remember that London Beat CD. I don't know what it was called, but this song. I remember putting stickers on that and stocking it for like days. It was because it was so big. It stands in my mind. But I remember when the doors opened and just seeing the kind of this sense of awe of people who came in because they'd never seen a record store like that before. There was the basement, which was all, dance, hip hop, 12-inch singles, remixes. Then you'd go up to the second floor and you'd have all your alternative and the catalog stuff. And then you're right, either classical, jazz, like in areas and dedications and floors. So people were just kind of walking around with it, like, this is incredible. I've never experienced anything like
this.
The
video section.
I think that's what really made it a cool place to be.
Yeah.
It was. I just, want to show this for a quick second up on those watching on YouTube. This was and we're talking about the 35th anniversary of the opening of HMV, the 333 Yonge Street. So Paulie Graham, Ivor, and CFNY.
I helped put that together, by the way.
Did this Free at Last cassette. Yeah, the Free at Last cassette. And it was a giveaway, right?
Yeah, it was a value add proposition. So we negotiated with the store to put in racks and I believe listening post as well, because one of the big selling points of HMV 333 was the fact they had more listening posts than just about anywhere else. So it's a great opportunity for us to get the music out there through the store and through a partnership with CFNY. And so myself, one of the other marketing managers at Universal was Livia Tortella. And so collectively, and then my boss at the time, Steve Cranwell, we worked on that with our sales team to put it together. So anyway, it was there was a number of them, right? It went on for a couple of years, and let's be realistic, Scott. God bless you for remembering that. Like there was probably only 600 of those because it wasn't done nationwide. It was only done at a 333, and nobody was. I was thinking about this overnight and going, that is one of the, it was kind of groundbreaking because, I don't remember many other places that did things that were just specific to one store. And there I am in 2026, all of a sudden they're doing special vinyl releases now for Rough Trade in the UK, only for the 2 stores in London. That's it. So this was quite a bit ahead of the time. And the other thing with that Free at Last though was there's a bunch of cool things on that weren't anywhere else, like some of the radio mixes for things that weren't released commercially, and a couple of things that never came out. So it really made it enticing for somebody to come in and go, hey, I will buy, for example, whatever, the James album, and I will get a copy of this Free at Last, and look at all those other things that I can discover off of that.
Yeah.
And we'll post that on our socials. Just thinking that it was one of those things that if you bought the CD or the cassette, you got a copy of it. If I recall correctly, it was a buy it and a get it,
correct,
get it sort of thing. Yeah.
As we call it, then a value add.
Value add. Yeah. I mean, I remember, this is, yes, your record labels were always in doing stuff. I mean, this is where I first met Warren Kopnick and Tim Braddock from Sony. They were always in bringing in bands, but the yellow tape was huge there, right? This was one of the Sam's and HMV. The yellow tape was because we had the indie section on the main floor, and that thing just flew off the chart, off the racks.
Bare Naked Ladies, yeah.
And I remember one night, a few years later, Stephen Page is walking to the record store doing some browsing or whatnot. The temptation to play Brian Wilson over the speakers, let's pull it back. It's not a Tuesday night and raining on a Tuesday night. It's just a regular night down here at 333 at Big Blue, as we called it.
You mentioned that you were, I guess, in the video booth or the DJ booth for a while. What was the store policy? Because I remember when I was at Sam's, they had negotiated stuff with the labels, and you'd be like all day long, if I hear Crime of the Century, Breakfast in America by Supertramp one more time, I'm going to, throw myself off a bridge. Did you have that? It was like, okay, we have to play XX and X in the store, or was it a little more sort of freelance, free form?
Honestly, not that I can ever recall. It was just play whatever you want, create a mix. You'd run stuff that was, you'd want to play stuff that represented each department in the store.
Sure,
is the way it worked. And you would go on, here's something from the jazz section of the classical section, or here's a new release from downstairs in the basement, or whatnot. You tried to be representative of everything that was going on at the time.
Oh, one of the things I forgot to mention, which I thought was great about HMV, was they had their music books priced far better than Chapters and most other places that I could think. It was probably the cheapest place in the city to get a good deal on music books. I was constantly going in there and getting like, $10 or $20 music books that were, $40 elsewhere. They were really good about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, one question I had.
It was
yeah, amazing store. Question for you, Robbie, because you mentioned the basement and all the dance and hip hop of that. Coming up on the show, we're going to be talking about the very first 12-inch extended mix. The very first 12-inch that came out was 50 years ago. So this is great for all the people that listen to the podcast. Can everybody remember the very first 12-inch single they bought? And Robbie, what do you think yours was?
I was trying to think about that, and I can remember buying some extended mix CD singles. Because I'm of the age of that in the mid 80s, late 80s. But I was thinking about it, and I'm gonna hedge my bets that it was probably a remix of "Never Let Me Down Again" from Depeche Mode or something off Music for the Masses.
Okay,
I'm thinking it was around that time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ivor and I will do ours in the show when we get to the other stuff. One thing I want to ask both of you guys, this is an ongoing running gag between the two of you. Anytime you've seen a post between either of them, this term highly anticipated comes up between you guys. Please
it still
explain
goes
this.
on.
All right, Rob, you because I have a great memory of you calling me up and basically losing your marbles on this. So I turn it over to you. But it is now, people talk to me about, any of my friends that are in the country end of the music business. They lose their minds because I've always said the same thing for many years. And our little highly anticipated thing is like, it keeps on giving. So I turn it over to you.
Yeah. It's a good note to end it on. Highly anticipated this part of the conversation. So I was doing a lot of commercial production, and we were doing when the record labels were buying airtime. There was so much advertising for record stores and record labels. And Ivor was with is this the Polygram days, or did you moved over?
It would have been by Universal, and Universal was spending a fortune on the Edge.
Yeah,
and I was running the marketing department at the time.
That's right. So I get these scripts that would come in, and they would inevitably always say the highly anticipated new release, new single, new album, whatever you want to say, from such and such. And I'd call Ivor up, and because this is the thing I always believed in advertising, is you have to speak as people would converse, right? Scott, have you heard the highly anticipated new single from such and such is coming out? How do you feel about that? We don't speak that way.
Exactly.
So I'd call up Ivor and I'd be like, Ivor, they're doing it again. They're saying highly anticipated again. So Ivor would say, every time this comes up, let me know. I got to go talk to some people and deal with the situation, as it were. So this became our thing back and forth. And I can tell you, to this day, I still see them in press releases.
You sent me one 2 days ago.
I sent you one a couple of days ago.
From my former
evergreen content. Evergreen content,
fuck.
Ivor. It never stops.
Yes. Stop.
Hey, Robbie, just to back you up on that, I used to tell my announcers, I said, do the friend test. Would you call a friend up and go, and when the friend asks you how the weather is today, you don't go partly cloudy with a 77% chance of rain or whatever. No, you'd say it's going to be nice.
Yeah. Would you ever say it's chilly out today? Never.
Exactly. Okay, Rob, before you go, we're going to play this one clip from your years of production and imaging and all that stuff. And that's a thing in the documentary. I wish we had more time for all the great production, the promos, the marketing and those kind of things we did. But again, it could have been a mini series. So this, you sent me this one clip. I haven't listened to it yet. So maybe set this up.
I think it's an intro for the ongoing history of new music with Jamie Watson as the VO. And I think the reason I chose this is because Jamie is very influential and a mentor to me over the years when I was in production. And he and I worked. One of my favorite commercial campaigns I ever did was the ongoing one for Whiskey Saigon. We did live to airs there and whatnot. And Jamie inevitably would come in at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock on a Friday and say, "Oh, I got a call from Murray. Where they've got this new thing. Let's come up with an idea for it." So here we are, 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, trying to come up with an idea for something to do. And we just had this amazing kind of chemistry together where I would kind of be 3 thoughts ahead of where he was going to go with what he wanted to do. But the great thing about these client like that is they were like, you do what you guys want to do. We trust you implicitly that you're going to nail it and you're going to do, because you're representing also the live to air. So you're not going to do it any harm. Right. So we would, one of the ones that people sometimes come back to me and they say, the Whiskey Skygon commercial where, God bless Neil, man, one time he booted it in the VO and I just kind of kept it and I made this bizarre commercial out of it. And I love Neil that he went with it. He went with it and he loved it. So, but Jamie is a great influence on the production work that I did over the years. So I just thought it was, something to play.
Okay.
This is the ongoing history of new music with Alan Cross from 102.1 The Edge.
Jamie Watson, amazing.
That's really awesome, Robbie.
Okay, I think that's all our time. I know you got to go today.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I love talking about this stuff. It reminds me of, I think back to the reunion we had last year at Wolf's House.
Yes.
Where it was amazing that we could bring the CFNY era and the Edge era together, right? People are very, very passionate about this radio station, and I don't really care what era you listen to it in, because every era has its own identity to it. I was a fan of CFNY, the Spirit of Radio, but I never worked for the Spirit of Radio. But I was, my DNA falls into the Edge side.
But you carry on the Spirit. You carry on.
That's it. We just wanted to keep carrying it on, keep moving it forward, and cater to the audience of that time, so they remember the music and be engaged with it. And it still happens to this day. I've never been someone who would say one era is better than the other. I think it's all dependent upon when you're there and what you experience and what you bring from it and what you get from it. So
well 2027, of course, is going to be the 50th anniversary of the radio station. And Rob, we should put our collective heads together, and give some things to do that maybe we can do together. And I also say thank you to personally for recommending me for being on the Edge Time Machine. It's a true, absolute blast when you and I and Dusty go in there and talk about, hey, this is what happened this week in '86, and this is what happened, whatever. And that one that was done recently on putting the Pixies on the board along with the Cure and Nine Inch Nails on the imaginary 1999 or 1989 playlist. And I said to Dusty, it's like, let's do a couple of 70s ones, right? Because CFNY is around 78, 79.
I was in the other day doing a couple for the end of the month on the 191 and 2000, and he said, I gotta get a hold of Ivor, and we got to do these 70s ones. So
I can't wait to do that. But I thank you wholeheartedly for recommending me to be on that. I have an absolute blast on that. And I spoke to Dunner, who's sort of like the head of National, and he goes, man, you're like family here. So I kind of feel like I'm like Daryl Sittler or Lanny McDonald when you come back to the home base.
More like Gump Worsley.
No, he played for the half. That would not be part of that one.
Well, it's funny you say that. And I'm heading off to do we're doing a live Uncharted tonight down as part of Departure, down at the Jane Mallet Theater. Alan's doing a show, and it's funny you mentioned the Leafs, because I think I've said this to you before, Ivor. I said, CFNY, the Spirit of Radio, is like the 67 Leafs. Like it's here, right? Like everybody knows it, loves it. It's on this massive pedestal. I think we in the Edge were kind of like the 92, 93 Leafs. We were punching above our weight, trying to cut through, trying to make it go, trying to make our own mark, while also paying homage to what came before us.
That's a great comparison.
Trying to carve out our own existence. So
you should be proud. And again, thank you for that. And I highly anticipate the next time we get together.
Definitely.
Well,
definitely.
And the Leafs getting the first draft pick too.
There you go.
Who knew that, right? I should have put some money on that one.
All right.
Thank you, Robbie.
Robbie,
J.
Thanks,
all
guys.
the best. Take care.
Have a good one. All right. So, Ivor, let's just get to our usual stuff. And before we get into We'll start with the 70s this week, but before we jump into that, just a quick update on, speaking of CFNY and the documentary, we've got 2 more theater screenings, one in Buffalo, one in Brampton, where it all happened. So a quick update.
Yeah, so Buffalo Town Ballroom on Friday, May 29th. You get your tickets at townballroom.com. Myself, Liz, you, Scott, Nicholas Pickles, and I forgot to mention this last week, so I will go to the rock and roll corner for a second there. Darren Pfeiffer, former CFNY DJ and Goldfinger member, presented by BTPM The Bridge. We will have a special announcement forthcoming around that Buffalo date on some further U.S. activity, which I'm really excited about. I will also mention too, just on quickly on the merch side, that the Blu-ray and DVD are back in stock. So that is happening. Brampton, of course. Tickets still available at tickets.brampton.ca. You just key in CFNY and it takes you straight to the page. Every patron of that last show on the 6th of June will receive a special commemorative tour poster. And on that show that night, it is Alan, yourself, Scott, me, Liz Janik, Fred Patterson. That's a big plus for Freddie P. And would I forget? Did I mention Liz? Anyway.
Yeah, you did. Yep,
I did. So we got it's a very big night that night, and really. Oh, the other thing that I made mention of this week is I had a note from Alan saying that the guy who ran Calypso Garden, Jai, his son, reached out to us. He goes, "We want to get another one of those commemorative plaques that are up in Calypso Garden for Jai." So I responded to Jai's son and said, "Please invite Jai out to our final screening. And for those of you that ever knew Calypso Garden, which many, many people did, it would be wonderful to see him out there that night too."
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Okay, and in merchandise, just can you give us an update, because we sold out of the CFNY doc.
So we'll be back
address again. I keep mixing that up.
CFNYdoc.com. That is where the merchandise is. We've had very brisk sales on the Blu-ray and DVD. I'm quite surprised, but pleasantly surprised. I just did a reorder for more stock, so but we are back in stock there. Plus working diligently to get our stock levels up on all the t-shirts. So just thought you should be aware of that. And I am also working behind the scenes right now and doing something special with RushCon, which is coming through August 7th, 8th, and 9th to Toronto at the El Macombo. So most of the interviews in the documentary were at the El Macombo. So there is a little bit of a built-in partnership that we're working on right now. Nothing confirmed yet, but we're working on it.
Okay. Is that everything?
Oh, yeah, that's everything on that.
The medium t-shirts, any word on that?
I'm working on it. I mean, okay. I've sent many notes, Scott, to our merch people. As we tape this on the Thursday, I will be out there today seeing those folks to just get an update on that, right? So okay. So we're it's top of mind for everybody, and I know for you people that are of smaller stature, it's a priority. So I have not forgotten about you.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, new concerts this week. Anything happening?
Yeah, the big one, I guess, for if you're fans of CFNY, on the back of the Trixies album, their best album in 30 years, Squeeze have announced they will be at the RBC stage on August the 28th, and their special guest is Adam Ant. But the other one that's added to that bill, which I think is going to be quite interesting, is Haircut 100. Now, unlike Big Country, this is the core lineup: Nick Hayward, Les Nemist, Graham Jones, Blair Cunningham, and they have a new album out called Boxing the Compass. It's coming out June the 19th. We've got 2 of those new songs up on the Music Milestones playlist. I got to say, I'm really impressed by them coming back after such a long time. The horns sound fantastic, so should be a good experience. Now, moving out of concert for a minute here, if you weren't living under a rock, you might have heard there's a new Rolling Stones album. It's called Foreign Tongues, coming out the 10th of July. There's 1 song that was released on vinyl so far, and 2 songs that you can hear currently on the digital platforms. It's produced again by Andrew Watts, the same guy who did Hackney Diamonds. Guest appearances: McCartney, Robert Smith from The Cure, and Charlie Watts. They recorded some songs while he was still alive, and some backing tracks. They managed to put that together. It is a blues-based record once again. It is all over the media, many versions of that, including a Blu-ray audio version, lots of merch. Some really interesting artwork on the cover by a very noted artist that is worth checking out. Now, if you are hungry and it's hot weather is upon us, well, not today. It's 6 degrees to here in Niagara-on-the-Lake, but as May and June goes on, the hot weather gets here, and that means ice cream. The Tragically Hip have done a partnership with Kawartha Ice Cream and are putting out the Tragically Chip ice cream, and that is coming out.
You're not kidding. You're not kidding.
Serious. So the Tragically Chip ice cream coming out with Kawartha Dairy, and they're based in Bob Cajun. So you can't ask for a better partnership. A portion of the sales of this ice cream, and God bless the Hip for always doing it right, will go to Breakfast Clubs of Canada. So that's great. It's available at all of the Kawartha Dairy stores. There's 17 locations across Ontario. It'll be available as of June 22nd. And then on Canada Day, it will be available more widely at the likes of the, Sobeys, Longos, Loblaws, what have you. So I think on the 22nd of June, just for fun, I am going to drive to Bob Cajun and get myself some Tragically Chip, Scott.
That's fantastic. You got to film that.
Yeah, we should.
Well, that's funny. Doesn't Alan Cross have a hot sauce now or something?
Yeah, he does. I saw he's got his, what is it? Red hot chili poppers for his dog. He's got his dog on the cover of it or whatever. So,
oh my God,
I'll have to get him. Hilarious. We'll have to do a trade or something. Okay, so
I was just going to say the other thing, Ivor, is just on the Stones album. Do you know what Robert Smith is he singing on it?
He is singing background vocals on it. Yes,
that's hilarious. I just that the Rolling Stones and Robert Smith of The Cure, just what I mean. You figured those would never cross paths.
Oh, listen,
but why not?
Olivia Rodrigo had Robert Smith play with her, so I mean,
yep. Oh yeah, no, I'm not judging it. I just look forward to it. So that's. I
mean, I think it's going to be really similar to Hackney Diamonds, but I mean,
right?
Hackney Diamonds was, people, I don't know, people forget about Hackney Diamonds already, and it was only not even 3 years ago, but it was a really good record, and they really. Yeah. They really did their best to try and keep up to date with a lot of things, but it's still going to be kind of like the Stones do blues-based stuff better than anything else. So this is what we have, but I'm sure they're going to surprise us once we hear the whole album. There hasn't been a peep about them doing any live shows, so we'll see what happens on that. Soccer coming up. So they announced the FIFA Fan Festival celebration going on from June 11th to July 19th in the Bentway area of Fort York, under the Gardiner Expressway. 300,000 tickets available, and all free. 220,000 went on the first wave already because they're free. So you can get tickets. They will be doing it. They're probably, now they might be sold out because they're actually doing it yesterday, Scott, when this goes up on the 15th. But Toronto FWC 26 website. Just an example of some of the people that are appearing: Alessia Cara, Cardinal Official, Walk Off the Earth, the Strumbellas, Bedouin Sound Clash. Just an example of some of that. Here's something that's a bit of a sad note as time moves on. Some things fall out of favor. Maybe they're not run so well, but we're saying goodbye to the Toronto Beer Festival. They just announced recently they've gone out of business. They declared bankruptcy, unfortunately, and that is no more. And, I don't know about you, Scott, if you ever went to that, but for many years, it was a great experience and a great place to be. Lots of great memories of that. So sorry to see that go. Couple of other things. So if you are a fan of going up to Ottawa on Canada Day, which I know many, many Canadians are, there is a free concert happening. That is free in the Byward Market on Canada Day from 7 to 11. And it is called the Back to the 80s Throwback Concert, a free concert with Men Without Hats, the Spoons, and the Box. So why not? Byward Market. So there you go. All right. So too much 80s crap out there. These shows that are announced, a couple of cancellations. EMF and Belouis, some Buffalo shows were canceled due to unforeseen circumstances.
I posted those.
I know
this morning.
I know.
I didn't realize.
Now that was the Buffalo shows. I don't know about the Toronto ones, but
okay.
I will say that has a lot to do with the Buffalo Sabres, to be honest with you. I believe sum right up against a Buffalo Sabres game, and it takes a lot of precedence over that. A couple of other things upcoming. This is for your making plans for the Labor Day weekend. Sauble Beach Beach Party at Sauble Beach Speedway on Labor Day weekend. Something for all tastes on Friday, September the 4th. They got a country night. On the Saturday, they got rock with Simple Plans, 303 Faber Drive and Stereos. And on the Sunday is hip hop with Flo Rida, Cardinal Official, and more. Coming up October 2nd at Sobe Stadium is Interpol. That's a new announcement. Interpol and DIIV. And of course, just announced this week was Olivia Rodrigo with special guest Wolf Alice, 2 shows at Scotiabank October 26th and 27th. Now, the one final thing I will say is that the ticket legislation came into being this past week on capping on ticket prices. And Scott, I have gone to a number of shows that are coming to town to look up the ticket prices. And so far it's holding. I'm not seeing any fuckery with super high prices. I'm seeing all regular prices listed in Canadian dollars because, I mean, I bought tickets to 2 shows in 2025 that were listed, but did not, shows in Canada were tickets purchased in Canada. Then I got billed in US dollars. All of this is now very, very clear with fees, what your total prices are going to be for these concerts. I hope this sticks because this is the way it should be. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, I think I will buy tickets to see Jack White now. I will buy tickets to see whoever else, right? So
yeah, that's fantastic news. I agree. I hope it's not just they're just hiding and then it slowly slides back in, but let's hope it holds.
Well, I mean, I'll always remember when they introduced the smoking legislation when it first came in, and that was when, you'd go to the bar and it's like, you can't smoke in this part of the bar, but one section over you can still smoke. And I'm like, what? And so it didn't have any water, so that it didn't hold any water. But the second time it came through, it's like no more screwing around, and it held. So I'm really hoping that this time that this is holding. They did it in the UK and it seems to be working there. So let's hope that that happens here.
Wow. Yes. Agreed. Okay. We good?
We are good. Let's move on.
Okay, let's do some milestones. We're looking at the week of May 11th to 17th. We're going to go back 50 years. Boom, boom. Okay. Speaking of 50 years, by the way, remember we were talking about the 50th, just a couple of weeks ago, the 50th anniversary of Blitzkrieg Bop and also the debut album from the Ramones. So there I am watching a couple of series on TV. I think I mentioned these before. And on 2 different shows that I'm watching, one night I watch part of this show and next night I do another episode of another series. Anyway, 2 different series, both played Blitzkrieg Bop. It was Friends and Neighbors, which is, I recommend, with John Hamm. Season 2, the end of episode 4, they're playing Blitzkrieg Bop. Also watching, and I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen Rooster yet, everybody, got to check Rooster out. It's hilarious with Steve Carell. It's absolutely laugh out loud. Anyway, episode 8 of the first season of that, Blitzkrieg Bop.
If I can find a way not to get Crave and watch Rooster, I will, because I've heard the same thing and I've seen the promos, but I'll be goddamned if I'm going to pay for another subscription service.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I know. You have to decide. It's really tough, but that's a good one, by the way. It's really, really funny.
It looks good. It looks good. It honestly does look great. So
it's really well done. The writing, the timing is just impeccable. Fantastic.
And I did watch that movie that you recommended that was set in the 50s that had the 80s music in it, which was pretty good. The one with the kid who plays ping pong or whatever.
Yeah.
That was
so. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the name of it, but good movie, yes. So 50th anniversary of the Rocks album from Aerosmith. This is the album after Toys in the Attic, and a big seller. Had Back in the Saddle in it. Yeah.
The saddle again.
I still think that's held up really well, that track. And it's not like their most played, of course, is, Dream On and Walk This Way, but Back in the Saddle is an absolute killer rock track.
Still kicks ass to this day. Absolutely.
Agreed. Also, 50th anniversary of You're My Best Friend by Queen. By the way, so that single off the Night at the Opera was released in North America before the UK, quite a bit ahead apparently. And just, I was reading about that song. I didn't realize that that was one of the few songs that John Deacon, the bass player, had written. And apparently, just based on that, because it became such a top 40 hit, that they made so much money from just that song that he literally bought a house, his first big house, off of that song.
Easily off of that. I mean, and that was actually written about his wife. And it was, I think it was, really? He had to get encouragement from Freddie to do that song. And then in later years, it was featured in one of my all-time favorite movies, Shaun of the Dead.
Yes.
If you remember Shaun of the
Great
Dead.
Movie.
I mean, I love Shaun of the Dead when they're out in the backyard with a box of 12-inch singles, whipping them at the whatever, the monsters or whatever. Yeah. It's like, oh, no, wait a second. That's a limited edition. I'm not going to throw that one or whatever. But also used in Simpsons, Family Guy, and EastEnders. And if you saw the Queen documentary too, I remember they were having a huge argument over Bohemian Rhapsody in the movie, and they go, no, we should have something more for the people, like I Love My Car, right? And they're like, oh my God, like I love my car. So, but I think it's a great enduring song.
Yeah, and it's funny, that album, because you have Bohemian Rhapsody, which is in a world of its own, and then you've got these sort of little pop songs also on the same album too.
Yeah, and I remember reading about, Freddie Mercury took the record to the BBC, and they were like, "Oh, are you going to play whatever the song, the pop song?" He goes, "No, we're playing Bohemian Rhapsody, and by the way, it's whatever 7 minutes long. We're playing all of that." Like, really?
Yeah, no, that's great. They covered that quite well in that doc. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So next up is, we talked briefly about this a couple of weeks ago, because, we just passed, last year would have been the 50th anniversary of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then what people don't realize, you have to go back, and those that are older of our age, Ivor, we'd remember that the Rocky Horror film did not do that well. It basically stiffed at the box office and didn't last very long in the theaters. And so there was a couple of these, smaller independent theaters that decided to run it, because there was a little bit of a kind of cult buzz rumbling of that for certain people were like, this is actually a lot of fun, this movie, this is really cool. So then it was the New Yorker, the Garys had it at the New Yorker for a few nights, and then it went to the Roxy, and we're on the 50th anniversary of that. It started May 14th, 1976 at the Roxy in Toronto, and it just kept going.
It ran for 7 years. And I was out to see just yesterday Lindsay Gillespie. And Lindsay, was one of the original producers at CFNY. He was there right at the beginning. He was a business partner with David in a lot of things. And he used to always go to out to the Roxy to see that. And I said, Lindsay, I remember you walking around the radio station singing Hot Patootie all the time, right? And so it's like, he goes, did I? I said, yeah, you love the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And anyway, but I read like fans would travel from everywhere. And I didn't realize that it was sort of just a Toronto thing, right? And there was this Paul Williams thing too. Apparently he was a huge star in Winnipeg for whatever that film that he had. But this Gary's thing went on from 76 to 83. And, if you read Gary's book, they were pretty liberal guys, right? So it was cheap to go to. But, if you wanted to smoke a joint in the theater, or if you wanted to have a beer or drink whatever libation, they never really, people, it wasn't enforced very much. So it was always a party. And it was also one of the first places where shadow casting came out, and that is people getting up, dressing the part of people in the movie, and getting up and acting out the same things that are happening in the movie at the same time. So, and Lindsay and his girlfriend, one of his girlfriends at the time, were big on going to do that, and I knew a few other people who did as well. I never went and saw it myself.
Neither did I, but I regret that, because I heard it was so much fun. I had friends do it. Right.
But I lived, before I moved down to Niagara-on-the-Lake, I was in the Danforth and Coxwell area, and the Tim Hortons is, well, the Roxy is now a Tim Hortons, but in that Tim Hortons, they've still preserved the outer facade of the theater, and there is a display up in the Tim Hortons that pays homage to what that theater was, which I believe there's a picture of the Rocky Horror in there as well.
Right. It's interesting. They at Hot Docs just in March ran the Rocky Horror in honor of like the 50 years, and they said, because I don't know, Showtime, whatever. Then it said not permitted in the theater, and it's no bringing rice, no bringing toast, no bringing water pistols.
Right, of course.
All the different things that people used to throw at the screen.
You know what? Like, fuck you. Like,
take all the fun out of it.
What's the point? Like, for fuck's sakes.
If you can't throw the toast, come on.
I'm going to rent the movie and stage my own event. Bring whatever you want. Like,
I love it, Ivor. You should do that. Let's do it.
Let's talk. Hey, Sudeep, let's talk to Lloyd. Let's do our own Rocky Horror down at Ground Control. Bring whatever you want, excluding firearms. Just, fun stuff. Anyway, there's also there's a new 4K restoration, which I love those things. Is going to be happening at Roy Thompson Hall this October, so watch out for that too. But we should do something. We should try and do something. I talked to Lloyd. Yeah. Hey, Lloyd, let's do something. So Lloyd, if you're listening, you and Sudeep, you guys, let's do it. As long as I can sell Rocky Horror CFNY merch.
Yeah. Well, here's another 50-year anniversary. So the very first.
I want to back up one second.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to just mention Lindsay again. He's got some amazing photos that are going to be part of our book. I have never seen any of these photos before of Tim Curry at CFNY. A ton of pictures of Tim Curry when he came to visit CFNY. So, and we know how much David loved Tim Curry as well. So, something to look for.
Well, and there was that. I don't know if it was 2 solo albums, but there's one particular solo album he did that got a lot of play on the station.
Yes,
it was great. Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's move on because this is a big one.
Yes. Okay. So interestingly, it is 50 years since the very, very first 12-inch came out, and this came out of the disco era. And by the way, the very first song was called 10% by Double Exposure, and it was I just went and listened to, because I couldn't remember the track, so I went and listened to it this morning, Ivor. And
I did
definitely
too.
A disc. What's that?
I did too.
Yeah, and it's definitely a disco track, but it's actually quite a soulful disco track, so it's not a very super typical disco track, but it's definitely got that South Soul feel to it. And this is 1976, so there was demand with the DJs that they were buying 45s and making their own extended mixes by mixing 2 45s together, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
So there was a demand or an interest in having these longer tracks, and thus the very first 12-inch was released, and that was the very first one, Double Exposure 10%. We were talking about that with Robbie J earlier on, and I was trying to think of and maybe you want to go first, Ivor. Do you remember the first 12-inch you ever bought?
This goes back to, that question in Vancouver a couple of weeks. I can't say absolutely definitively, but I got a pretty good idea because of the era. Now, first of all, I remember, when I was working at Sam's there part-time at Bramalea City Center, and before I worked there was a guy working in the store who became one of the most influential persons, if not in Canada, if North America, in the dance music movement, and that was Vince DiGiorgio, right? Like the absolute god of dance music. And so that store had hundreds and hundreds of 12-inch singles in there. And I think about the 12 inches going, of course, the DJs loved it. And the radio DJs, when they could play them, they loved it because, back in those days when everybody smoked, they could go for a smoke and they could go for an extended break, whatever that they needed to do at the time. Now, as far as for me, I would have bought it obviously during the early alternative era. I think of a few records, I'm going to say 3. Soft Cell Tainted Love 12-inch.
Definitely.
Bauhaus Bela Lugosi's Dead, and it's 9 minutes. And the other one is something that we've got as a separate topic on the program, is The American by Simple Minds. And that was one of the very early sort of like records that expanded their horizons and kind of moved them out of, being a little more sort of post-punk into something that moved them onto the dance floor a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's my memories that I think of right now. I think I don't have it anymore. There was also a certain ratio. There was one of their 12 inches that I would have played on the import show, but I don't have it anymore. So,
right. It's interesting you brought up, and I was thinking of a couple of legends in Canadian dance music, Vince DiGiorgio for sure, and also reached out to Dominic Zarka and his buddy George, who ran the Montreal record pool. I was asking him about, does he remember the first 12-inch out in Canada? Because this 10% double exposure was out of the U.S. And Dominic said, yeah, it was the same track. They had licensed it in Canada as well. And then Vince said, the very first Canadian, I guess he was thinking that was Canadian production, the very first Canadian 12-inch, he said was Fighting on the Side of Love by the THP Orchestra, which got like 2 of the maples, so it qualified as
All right, because I didn't think they were Canadian, but if they got 2 maples, well, of course, they were a little more loose on that back then. You know, that Canadian band from Montreal, Kid Creole and the Coconuts, not, right?
Yes.
Played as Can-Con, but really wasn't. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
And Heart.
Oh, so I did some digging, and I do not have the Ivor Hamilton collection in my little space behind me here. But look what I found. This was, I believe this was May 1978. For those watching on YouTube, this is the Rolling Stones Miss You 12-inch pink. The pink. I remember buying this, going, "Oh, I got to get the pink version." So this was one of the first, and I have one other to show you that I think was my first.
That one, you're absolutely right. And I was kind of just sort of going to alternative, but you're right. I mean, that whole summer of '78, you could not get away from that record.
This one, February '78. It is Denis from Blondie.
Yeah. Well, I would also think Heart of Glass too, because that was also '78. So you're right. I think the Stones and Heart of Glass to me would have been a memory on that, a big memory on that one. There was also, again, and this was a '77 release, there was a 12-inch single that came out in Jamaica, an extended version of Punky Reggae Party by Bob Marley. And I think that was also one of the first ones too.
Ah, yes, I think so. Yeah. Who was it mentioned? Dominic also mentioned La Vie en Rose. Grace Jones was one of the early 12-inch singles that came out. Anyway.
Yeah, Miss You, I think, was probably, because that would have, I mean, that was you couldn't have gotten anything bigger in the summer of '78 than Miss You. That was all over. I mean,
enormous,
everywhere, right?
Yeah. That's true. And anyway, it'd be fun for everybody to go through their collections and see if they can remember them.
And the thing is, it's like those 2 records, Scott, I have those in my collection. I just forgot.
Yeah, no, I figured that. Because when I was looking at, and I was a big fan of Blondie before Heart of Glass happened, and this Contacting Red Square, Kung Fu Girls by Blondie. They were great tracks. And yeah, this was a 12-inch. I think this is an import too.
I still have I've got my Debbie Harry autographed picture from when they played the El Macombo in '78 or whatever, and she's like, "To Ivor," and I was like, "Oh, goddamn thing faded out though with time though. Unfortunately, you can barely see it." So,
well, and as you could see, funny enough, is again, sorry for those not on YouTube, I'm just showing the record that's split apart. You could see I even put
you put tape on the
duct
side,
tape on the side like we did in radio stations, right?
Because got a few of those.
Some of these records were not glued very well, or over time the glue kind of came off.
Let's also remember too, like, a lot of the vinyl back then. Let's remember that some of this stuff, it was only pressed on 140 or 120 gram. It was like shitty quality.
Oh, totally.
Especially that K-Tel stuff. Like, it was like a lot of that stuff was garbage. So,
well, this Blondie press.
Oh, there you go.
I think it's a US, and it bends like a banana. It's so thin. Yeah. And then the British ones, right? It was always like,
the British ones were always better.
The UK import, because they were just so much better.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So I also have we're looking at 1976, also May 1976, Get Up Off That Thing from James Brown was released. I just remember playing that at so many, because I was a mobile DJ back in the late 70s. And I remember that was always something to get the party going, that James Brown record.
Absolutely. The James Brown. I was very fortunate to see him play twice. And of course, the one thing I also remember was when when he passed away, and I was driving home, and I think it was Christmas night. It was either Christmas Eve or Christmas night, and I'm listening to the news, and it's like, James Brown has passed away, and he's got a show scheduled coming to Toronto, but no word whether or not that's going to be rescheduled. And I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? Clearly, they got a college student on the air that night.
All I can think about when I think of Get Up Off of That Thing is the intro to that. You remember it was just something like that at the beginning of it?
Eddie Murphy and his Eddie Murphy doing his imitation of James Brown. He did a damn good job on that. I also remember too, I had Van Morrison in town, and we took Van Morrison and his band out for a night on the town, and we went to the El Macombo, and then we went to the Montreal Bistro, and I had a date with me that night along with him. We're all going out for dinner, and it's the club, but James, anything with Van Morrison, you never know what's going to happen, right? And I went to, I think I went to the bar to get some drinks or something, or maybe I had to go to the washroom. I can't remember. Anyway, my date kept saying to me, she's like going, that guy Maceo keeps hitting on me, right? And I was like, well, he is from the James Brown band. Like, come on. I just was like, but it's Maceo. Like, I what am I going to say? It's Maceo. It's from the James Brown band, man. Like, she wasn't too pleased. But yeah, I went, and those guys, they decided they didn't like it. So I left the table. I came back, and there was about 50 drinks sitting on the table. They just got up and left. They decided they didn't like it. But anyway. That was my James Brown experience. And of course, we know this song, Scott, was sampled over 300 other songs, one of the most sampled songs of all time. Some of those highlights include Public Enemy's Rebel Without a Pause, Salt and Pepper's Shake Your Thing. And one thing I just read, this was new to me, and I didn't realize this, is there's an ongoing James Brown exhibition at the National Museum of African American Music. Now, I thought to myself, that's some African American history, and then I said, wait a minute, that's music. So this is based in Nashville. And I looked online, and it looks like it's a can't miss place if you go to Nashville. It looks absolutely phenomenal. It's all new, forward technology on stuff, and they got a James Brown exhibition there.
Oh, very, very cool. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about sampling. That's just on one song, 300 odd times in different songs. I think if you just, Google James Brown, how many times has he in any of his songs been sampled? Like, think of Funky Drummer. Like, it's just everywhere, right? In hip hop, especially.
Yeah. I mean, this is and it hurt the business, and things becoming available or ongoing things being available because it was so expensive to buy rights to sample, and it was new technology at the time. So that kind of forced a hold on a bunch of things not being available for so long. If you know the band, the Avalanches, I think, what was it, like 8 years between their first and second record, maybe even a decade. I can't remember, but it was a hell of a long time, and it was mainly because they couldn't clear the damn samples.
Yeah. Also, 50 years ago, released in May 1976, Police and Thieves, Junior Murvin, of course, covered by The Clash years later. Great track.
One of the greatest from the time, and it was banned from the radio in Jamaica because they thought it would continue to breed the unrest that was happening at the time, and have it on record that it was also the underground anthem for the Notting Hill Carnival, rather, in 1976. I don't know if you ever been over to the UK and done the Notting Hill Carnival. I went one year and I was like, oh my God, what a like, Scott, like, I don't know how people put up with it. I like the loudest and biggest sound systems you'd ever seen and heard all up and down Notting Hill, and it was quite the experience. Of course, nobody was smoking any weed, and nobody was in the street drinking Red Stripe, but man, what an experience. I loved it.
I just remember being in Negril with a buddy in Jamaica. I'll tell you that whole story another time, but I remember because we rented a part of a house in Negril, and I'll tell you a whole story about smoking weed there. And that whole experience. But the sound system was in town down the road, and oh my God. And right, as I say, you can feel the bass.
Well, I mean, I read a book on reggae. This has got to be about 10, 15 years ago. And it was, I mean, down there, it was a huge, one-upmanship between all the DJs, right? Like who can have the biggest sound system or whatever. And there was one guy down there who set the bar that I don't think has ever been topped, because he went down to whatever the harbor in Jamaica or in whatever Negril or whatever or Montego or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And bought the smokestack off of an ocean liner for a subwoofer. I was like, I don't think there's anything out there that's much bigger than what this guy did. Right?
Oh my God. That's brilliant.
I was like, that is dedication to making it, making it loud and making the bass go,
Love it. Love it. All right, let's do 40 years ago. Dipping into the 80s, looking at the week and milestones for May 11th to 17th off the top here. We're looking at 1981, so 45 years ago. Daddy Cool returning to CFNY. You and I were talking about this briefly last week, and how cool that was, that show. And it really was cool. Thus, the guy himself that I met at the station a couple of times, he just had a legion of fans. And when you do meet him, and I've forgotten his real name now, but
Dave Booth. Dave Booth,
yes. He was actually really cool dude. Like, just
great
pure
guy.
And pure.
Yeah, I mean, he was like one of those guys, a music guy, really was. And, I heard something recently, Ted Wallachin, he was interviewed for our forthcoming book, and Ted had 2 tenures at CFNY, but he talked about how impressed he was that there were so many guys there that were like real music heads. But Ted got into the business just for being into radio, and he liked news and things like that, wasn't a music guy. So he might have felt a little bit intimidated by some of these guys were such music heads. And Dave was one of those guys, but he wasn't arrogant about it. He was just great about it. He knew what he was talking about, and he played amazing music, but it was from a very different era. It was like 50s and 60s R&B and blues based records. And after I left and when I went to Polygram, he was a regular visitor to Polygram because he'd always come in and he'd go through our publicity cabinets that we had at the time and goes, look, I'd like to take a copy of your photo, got extra copies of photos of Ella Fitzgerald, or you got extra, BB King photos and things like that. And, it was always very great to do things like that. He's now retired, but I noticed that the Kitchener Blues Festival honored him with their Mel Brown Award in 2019, which I take it as like, somebody who's done a lot for the genre of music in the Kitchener area, which they have a big blues festival out there.
Yeah, you mentioned that Ted had 2 tenures at CFNY, and so did Daddy Cool. So this 45 years ago was the anniversary of him returning, because he was on the station in the very, very early days and had come back again.
And I heard that he, and I only read this today, and I think these are I think we need to confirm this, because I'm finding more and more things, Scott, that, we read online that aren't necessarily true, but it said that he quit in 88. And I'm like, I don't know if he was still there in 88. So, who knows, but we'll need to dig into that.
As you said, we're working and we're helping on the book and to nail down some details. And, like you said, with Robbie, all these different feature shows, and the feature shows were not for everybody, but there are people that was their favorite thing about CFNY, whether it was Headley Jones or Chris Shepard or the Thursday 30 or Daddy Cool and all of the other things that we had on the station. So loved by people, but the records of when the show started, when it finished, just so all over the place that our memories are just a mess, and we don't have it all logged properly, but we're trying to do that.
Poor Derek keeps asking me, he's like, Ivor, surely you guys have records of that. I'm like, we don't.
I have a few, but not many,
here
right?
and there, but some stuff is going to have to be, as best that we can do. I mean, one of the programs that I completely forgot about, which was also a pretty cool program, was Diasporic Music, and
yes,
it was Norman Otis Richmond who did that show.
Yep.
And he played some great stuff on his show too, right? Like he was a very, a solid representation of what was going on in the black music community, and really enjoyed what he did for a while there.
Case in point, Ivor, one of the longest running shows on CFNY was Live in Toronto. You and I started that show.
Yes.
And do you think either one of us know the date we started that?
Of course
not. A clue.
Not. Of course not.
I'm not even sure of the
Why
year.
would we do that? I don't know.
I'm thinking either 85 or 86.
I think I don't know. Honestly.
Yeah. So anyway, we need to figure that out. Do you remember what was the first song we played on Live in Toronto, Ivor?
Side 2 of the Grand Funk Live album, and we'll leave it at that, right?
Can't remember. We can't remember, but we're trying. We're trying. 45 years ago, May 11th, the Night Clubbing album from Grace Jones. What a great record.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a high point. One of the biggest records that year. You got Night Clubbing, the Iggy Pop, David Bowie song, and then all the other stuff that was on there, the Sly and Robbie doing the back, the rhythm section on that.
They just made that record, didn't they?
Walking in the Rain, great daytime song on the station, Pull Up to the Bumper. I mean, it was one of the benchmarks of that year.
Well, and you could be excused if maybe you weren't into the music, but you could buy the album just for the cover, because that was the coolest looking record cover. Grace Jones, that whole image and that Armani jacket she's wearing, just beautiful.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. Okay, what else do we have? Let's see. We're looking, we're in the 80s here still. Oh, I wanted to talk about this really briefly. 1981, 45 years ago, the very first karaoke bar opens in Toronto called Myco.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just telling Ivor about this just last week. We were doing a little prep for the show, and I was like, I've actually been to that place. And here's the quick story, is that my first wife, Lisa, who I'm still friends with, her dad was an import exporter. Okay, so this is 1981.
Sounds criminal.
Yeah, doesn't it?
What business you in? Import export, right?
So he worked in a firm that did import and exporting. Now you got to remember, this is 1981. So a lot of the stuff in Canada was from Japan. Remember, people used to complain about, made in Japan. It was, cheap, quote unquote cheap. And then, this is way before China all of a sudden became the big, import exporter, especially importer stuff coming from China. Anyway, so he was dealing with Japan a lot. And I guess it was he wanted to take us out for a bite to eat or something to drink. Anyway, he took us to this place. He told me it's called a karaoke place, and I'd never heard of the word before. And it, by the way, so I'll just give you the address of where it was. This is 1981. It is in the Furusato restaurant, was 401 Bloor East. Now, it might have opened slightly before this, but this is the best date I could find, May 1981. Anyway, I go into this place, and it's the first time I've ever seen, there's these little cabinets behind the bar along the top of the wall. They had these cabinets with alcohol, like Chivas and other scotches in it, and they all had little keys. And you could, if you're a regular patron there, you say, "Oh, I want my 18-year-old Chivas, please." And the bartender would, have the key, and they'd go up and they'd have your bottle there.
Oh, right. The first bottle service. Yes, I remember.
Yeah, the first time I'd ever seen this before, which later became really popular in the clubs, the bottle service. So they had this at this bar anyway. And of course, it's a lot of Japanese businessmen and, Canadian businessmen with their suits on and singing the song. Everybody's getting drunk and singing these songs. And it was the first time I had ever experienced, and that was the very first karaoke bar in Toronto called Myco, Maiko, back in 1981, long before karaoke really kicked in. Anyway.
I will say that karaoke singing became a nightmare, a minor nightmare for people if you worked at a record company, for A&R guys, and for people who would go to karaoke bars, and then I would always be accosted by people, and it's like, "Oh, my sister sang it, or my cousin sang at the karaoke bar, and they got an incredible voice. You should sign them." can I give you a tape? And I'd be like, I work in the mailroom. I don't have anything to do with that. Right? Like I would make up excuses. Like I was like, oh my God. Like, but I would constantly be harassed by people. Like if somebody had a band, it's like, oh, she's really good or he's really good. And it's like, oh yeah. Right now, on the other hand, I know that the second time, when the second iteration of Judas Priest, when Rob Halford left, is the guy who replaced Rob Halford was singing karaoke, and karaoke Judas Priest, and was discovered. And I remember going to a KISS conference that they had in Toronto, and they invited people up from the audience to sing KISS songs. Some guy got up to sing, and I was like, this guy's better than Paul Stanley. He was truly incredible. I don't know if he ever got a deal or not, but and wasn't the guy, the NXS guy, wasn't he a cover band singer or something too? So anyway.
That's funny. I just think of that. Yeah. What you don't want to have happen when you go to a party is somebody goes, oh, Ivor, go talk to Ivor over there about your son. Ivor works at a record company.
Oh man, the times that happened, and my best buddy used to thrive on it. And I remember early goes, hey Ivor, do you have any business cards? And I remember early on giving him business cards, and then he for fun would hand them out. Oh, I talked to Ivor. He's really eager to sign people. And then later on, he realized how much stress that was to me, and he knew much better to not do that.
Yeah. No, I got that too. Oh, go talk to Scott. Scott's on the radio. He can probably play.
He'll talk to the labels. They'll play it. No problem.
Oh man. Okay. So let's continue on. You mentioned the American by Simple Minds. 45 years ago was released. One of my favorite Simple Minds song to this day.
Yeah. I mean, here's this thing that I just said that we got to be careful on this stuff. So I've read a couple of these things now. When I go to research this, 2 or 3 things. And it said, talking about the American, and it's like, talking about, one of the band's most enduring songs, which it absolutely is. And it said one of the most enduring songs of the band's live set. And I'm like, really? Because I don't remember hearing that at the when they played here last summer. And so I went and looked it up on Setlist. And I'm like, they didn't play it in Toronto. And then I looked at 5 or 6 other shows, and it's not there. They might have done it like 9 or 10 years ago. And then I saw the same thing on UB40, which I know we're going to talk about in a bit. And it was like the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, one of the band's greatest live songs. I'm like, they don't play that song anymore. They haven't played it for 20 years. So anyway.
Yeah. Agreed. We got to I don't remember that being, a big track, in terms of popularity, because they had so many other bigger hits, if you will. But I think it's just a great track.
You're talking about the Simple Minds or the UB40?
Yeah, and the American, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the American. Yeah, and I think to me, that was the start of, I remember when that came out, and there was sort of those 2 EPs, the Sons and Fascination, Sister Feelings Call, and that to me was the start of the greatness of Simple Minds. I mean, they were really good up until then. There was a couple of good songs, but when those 2 EPs came out, you're like, holy shit, they moved up a notch, a big notch at that point.
100% agreed. Yep. May 15th, 1981, East Side Story, the album from Squeeze that ended up at 48 on CFNY's 1981 year-end list. Great record. Tempted record. How many? 5 hits off there, I think. A
lot of hits, and originally it was going to be a double album. It was supposed to be a double album, and when they brought Elvis Costello, and he was kind of like, yeah, we're not going to make it a double album, but it certainly, had a lot of other people involved on the record, but it really is, the Paul Carrick thing, and it really just, you
mentioned Elvis Costello. He produced it.
Yeah. It really, really is like one of their benchmarks. And the thing is, in 2026, they got this Trixie's record that was penned back in that era, but even prior to that, penned in the 70s. And is now sort of looked at as like a great companion to this one, as being one of their best records. So we're in a good place with Squeeze in 2026.
And that date, August 31st.
Was it 28th?
August 31st.
No, 31st. Did I say the 28th? I might have.
I don't know. Yeah, I have August 31st here at RBC.
We'll go with your date, Scott. My apologies. I must have looked at something else at the same time.
That's okay. I could be wrong too. Adam Ant and Haircut 100, as you mentioned. That's a pretty good bill.
That is, you know what? That is one of the better ones. I must admit for this summer that is
depending on what the price of the ticket is. I don't know what the price of the ticket is though.
Well,
should be reasonable.
I think it's I think it'll be okay. But whether they can sell 15,000 tickets, it's hard to say. I know they just finished up a sale that Live Nation had of like $30 lawn tickets. So maybe, I'm not sure if that was part of the deal, but to me, it's like, yeah, I'd pay $100, no problem to go and see that show. But if it was a $400 ticket, it wouldn't be on my list of things to do.
Yeah, fair enough. May 11th, 1981, Don't Let It Pass You By, backed with Don't Slow Down, UB40. They did that. I think UB40, the other bands did too, but I think UB40 did that with a number of their singles. They sort of were double A side. They weren't sure what was, here's both sides. You decide what is your favorite song.
Double A side, right?
Yeah. I have here, for those that don't know, first of all, UB40 is playing Fallsview October 3rd. Now, for those that don't know, there are two UB40s out there, and I'll just try to tell the story very quickly. Is basically there's sort of the Robin Campbell UB40 and the Allie Campbell UB40. Allie was the singer on most of their stuff and the voice that you would remember the most, and Robin isn't, but there's two bands out there. So it's the Robin Campbell version of UB40 that it's at Fallsview. So they're actually billed as UB40. And then the Allie Campbell version of UB40 is UB40 featuring Allie Campbell. And for those that don't know, there was a big fight in the band, a big band, a lot of, I don't know, there's 12 guys in the band or something. And they had a big fight a number of years ago, and they never really worked things out. I think they fought them it got into the courts and everything. And I think it's still there. And that's as far as I know. It's just a mess. And there's two bands. There's two UB40s, everybody.
Double check while we're at it. You were right, Scott. It's August 31st for the squeeze date. My apologies I don't know why I listed the 28th. And the UB40 thing, I love them in the early days, but I gotta say, like, it's supermarket pop to me now. And it's not my thing. There's too many sort of AC wishy-washy covers in the set now for my liking, but each to his own.
Yeah, I would add that I haven't looked at the sets to see how much of that earlier stuff is covered.
Not a lot. I did. Not a lot. I'm
not surprised.
I think I love authentic reggae, and that's just, I don't know. It's just kind of, it's tourist reggae to me. It's whatever.
Yeah. Fair enough. No, fair enough. Anyway, that date for the Robin Campbell version of UB40 is October 3rd at Fallsview. And both of these versions of UB40, by the way, do have some original members from the original band playing live. So there's at least some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Raising Hell, Run DMC. This is their third album, was released 40 years ago in May, and ended up at 27 on CFNY's year-end list. So, yay for CFNY playing some hip hop. Those people that don't think the station did play some of that music, there you go. There's an example.
I remember they came into the radio station unannounced for an interview.
Oh, really?
I walked out to the front foyer, and it's like,
I love it.
Run DMC's here to do an interview, and we put them on the air. I remember they went and did it, but it was one of the few times that it's like an artist just showed up. It's like, yeah, we got Run DMC here to do an interview. I'm like, okay. And of course, I remember when we played Walk This Way and that, Aerosmith Run DMC version, that was massive video for the road show.
Yeah.
Huge success. That would be definitely one of the top 10 floor fillers of the evening.
I always hated that version, but was huge. You're right.
The video at the time when you had a video show, it was great for the time. Does it hold up the test of time so well now? Not really, but at the time it was pretty groundbreaking.
Although It's Tricky was the one off the album that I really liked. It's
Tricky too. That was also a big one. I mean, you can sort of play that back to back with the, your Beastie Boys stuff or whatever. And although I had some tremendous arguments with Elliot Lefko over bringing hip hop acts to Toronto. Over the years, because Elliot was sort of in that lane that as far as hip hop goes, that it was the Beastie Boys, and that was about as far as he could go. And I was like, well, you know, DMX has sold about 20 times more records than the Beastie Boys at the time. You should bring DMX in, and he refused. Would never do it.
Well, you know, you might not have gotten DMX over the border, but yeah.
He
but
came eventually. He got.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah. And good for you to push, Ivor. Hey, you never change. I love that. Right?
I mean, DMX and Foxy Brown. I mean, I ended up having to go down to Rochester to see them, right? But
yeah,
I remember seeing DMX. DMX took the stage at Woodstock 99 or whatever it was, and he was, to me, probably in the top 3 of that day, if not the best performer on that day. And it was like,
yeah,
why isn't this coming up here? Like, it just didn't make sense to me at the time. So
and it's great. There's some great YouTube video of some live performances. Yeah, pretty amazing how the crowd gets into it. One other from 40 years ago, we'll move on to other milestones. Give It Up from Talk, one of the singles off Color of Spring. Great record, great single.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like when they were making that transition sort of gradually from being the synth pop band to being, you know, more on the progressive side, which was where that very much their direction. And I think Give It Up was a great example of that from the album Color of Spring.
All right, let's do quickly some birthdays. There's a whole bunch of milestone birthdays. Okay, I'll roll through all of these, Ivor, and then you can just.
I'll pick a couple of comments. You roll through
it. We'll roll back. So first of all, we got Eric Burdon turning 85, Robert Fripp turning 80, Jonathan Richman turning 75, Enya turning 65, Billy Duffy of The Cult turning 65, Janet Jackson turning 60, Christoph Schneider of Rammstein turning 60, and Raphael Sadiq turning 60, Raphael from Tony. So that's all during the week of, what's the week of May 11th to 17th? A lot of birthdays. So happy birthday to everybody.
Right. I mean, I always loved the Animals. I really did. And I was fortunate enough to work with Eric Burdon in the last 15 years. He came through and did an in-store at Sunrise Records, and he did one of the Abco reissues. But I always remember he actually was one of the artists that played at Stars in Brampton. And Stars, of course, had, you know, they did a bunch of underplays, right? Marianne Faithfull, Eric Burdon, Steve Marriott, The Professionals, you know, a number of other acts that played at Stars. And Kevin and O'Leary and myself went out to see that show, and we yelled all night for him to play Sky Pilot, which was the second iterations of the Animals. Never played it, just totally ignored us. But I also saw the Animals reunion when they played at the C&E Bandshell, the original lineup, and they came out. There was 15,000 people there. We were in, I think I was in the second or third row. It was an absolutely amazing experience to see that band back together as a one-off. So was really thrilled to see that. Of course, King Crimson, Robert Fripp, one of the all-time legends. And of course, those King Crimson second iteration Mach 2 or Mach 3 of the band were some of the greatest records on CFNY in the early 80s. So you got to give them huge credit for that. And Alan does features on Robert Fripp and Toya every week on his ongoing history or his daily music news, because they do their Sunday brunch thing and do these weird covers. Jonathan Richman, born, I guess, turning 75. My memories, of course, of Jonathan Richman is that David Marsden never liked Jonathan Richman, but I love Jonathan Richman. So whenever I can get a dig in, I play Jonathan Richman. I remember he yelled at us for playing Jonathan Richman at the Road Show at Ontario Place. He goes, "What are you guys doing playing Jonathan Richman? You need to stop that." And we're like, "Yeah, whatever. We don't care." But for the Garys, one of the artists that Gary brought in most to Toronto, I think the artist I think he brought the most in was John Cooper Clarke, Ramones, and Jonathan Richman. And he still brings Jonathan in for occasional shows these days. So there you go. And then, of course, Billy Duffy. Loved Billy and the work that he did with The Cult. In my years at Polygram, I spent some time working with them. Christoph Schneider is the drummer in Rammstein, but he is a founding member of Rammstein and was also one of the guys who's responsible for a lot of their imaging. So, I mean, nobody's got imaging like Rammstein. I mean, one of the few bands that I've ever seen band members set themselves on fire, and always a great experience. And then, of course, Raphael Sadiq, I think for the next generation of new soul music, Tony, took an incredible run in the early 90s. And as a solo artist, he's great too.
We're also at now 45 years since we lost Bob Marley, incredibly. And, when I think of Bob Marley just very quickly is that his age, you think Bob Marley was 36 years old when he passed.
Yeah.
And, the thing people always say about people that died much too young that have got that sort of level of talent is think of all the music. What would it be like? What would Bob Marley music be like, had he had more years to do some more albums,
Yeah.
But you don't know. Maybe that was all his best stuff. We don't know, right? Maybe he
Who
lived
knows?
20 years and then started putting out some, absolute dribble.
I mean,
you never know.
It happens, but I mean, I loved his music. I always loved his music. There's very few. I could probably do without hearing Three Little Birds or one or two songs that are overplayed. But
yeah,
Legends, biggest selling reggae record of all time. His legacy is unbelievable around the world. It crossed so many genres, and he was a peacemaker. And I got nothing to say but good things about Bob Marley and his legacy.
Okay. Let's just roll through the 90s and 2000s just to wrap up the show. Let's start with the 90s. Okay, 35th anniversary of De La Soul is Dead from De La Soul. Their second album still sits on Rolling Stone's 500 greatest albums of all time. It's still on the list. A great record. We talked about De La Soul last week, and they're just one of those great creative hip hop bands that are just different than the rest.
Yes, I agree. That roller skating jam called Saturdays, named Saturdays, fabulous song, still holds up today.
Yeah, and I think you were talking about samples earlier. There's a track that was, they used a bunch of samples in that for sure.
The interesting thing about that is that part of the reason this record was not available on any of the digital services for a very long time, up until about 2.5, 3 years ago, is because of all the damn samples that were never cleared properly. And that's what held it back. So anyway, now it's
giving guys like you that work in record companies more work.
Oh my God, Scott, like you can believe the amount of work that stuff took, and the things behind the scenes that you would have to do. And of course you got different standards for each one of those carriers. So it just goes on and on and on. You'd think you'd have it all down, and particularly Apple, they're very, very particular. And if you don't get it right, like you're back to square one. So anyway.
35 years ago this week, Kiss Them For Me, Susie and the Banshees. And, I completely forgot about this song. And, good we do this show, because sometimes this is how I remember songs. I go, oh, wow. And I had to go back and listen to it. And I'm like, shit, I love this track.
I mean, it was one of those things that, bigger in the North America than it was in the UK. And that the strength of that song got her onto Lollapalooza that year. So, it went places.
Yeah, I love that track. Had a little Indian influence in it. But also, I think they were listening to a lot of the Madchester music, because it had a bit of that vibe in it too. But a really cool track from Susan. Not their usual stuff, but cool track.
Yeah, no, some of the background reminds me a little bit of Asian Dub Foundation, if you remember them.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Also went back and listened to a little bit of Kitchens of Distinction, May 12th, 1991. They played the El Macombo. You and I were talking about this band. What a cool band. Like
wrong place at the wrong time. Just like, to me, one of the great underrated bands of that time frame. It was kind of like, well, they were on the cusp of, weren't really the Manchester thing. We're kind of out of the shoegaze thing, and maybe a little late from some of the other alternative bands. But I still go back to their music and still love it today.
Yeah, I have to listen to more of their albums, Ivor, but the album I have is Death of Cool, so maybe put a track from that on the playlist. That is a great album.
I put some, there's some, the playlist is put together. There is a song up there. So.
Okay, for sure. We talked about the CFNY HMV Free at Last sampling cassette earlier. Yes. That was the first of the series. So you did a bunch of these. Yeah,
we did them on CDs. We did promo only versions also on vinyl too, which I still have in my collection. And I know there was multiples. I have a distinct memory of hearing like a multi-year promo for that ran on CFNY that talked about, oh, it's free at last 5 or whatever it was. I mean, it was definitely one of the most successful promos that we ran for years and years with the radio station. It was a great partnership. And then of course, it sort of petered out when the digital thing happened. And also, I believe what also killed it was the Universal merger, and people moved on to other things. But the product manager, who was sort of like the spearhead of it, was a woman named Livia Tortella, and she was really, really into it, and like, what can we do with CFNY or whatever, and I kind of jumped in with Livia and worked together. She was my next door neighbor too, so every day we would like drive to work together, and then we go to the office together, and then come home and like, what can we do with CFNY?
Talk about ideas. Yeah. So, what a great incubator for some ideas.
She's now a manager, like an artist manager marketing company in Los Angeles. She ended up moving to New York and worked with Leora Cohen and Julie Greenwald at the whole Def Jam scenario. I got offered to go at the same time, but yours truly decided that he wanted to keep his roots in Canada. I didn't want to get into the nightmare that was the American music business, especially in New York City. So, but Livia
have more samples to have to clear.
Livia went, more samples to clear, but Livia went on to do great things.
Also got here May 13th, 1996, Jewel played the Opera House, presented by, we were talking about Robbie earlier in the Edge days, that I find that interesting that CFNY was even playing Jewel in 1996. Wow.
I mean, listen, there's these records, like Sarah McLachlan and Jewel, that CFNY played those early records, and things change. I mean, at the time, Jewel was considered pretty cool as these early Sarah McLachlan. When I sort of read that, like they kind of did the marketing for Sarah McLachlan, going, well, this is Canada's version of the Cocteau Twins. And I'm like, well, maybe, I guess if you're trying to get your record on the air. And Jewel, she was kind of like, lived out of her van and doing whatever. And also she was easy on the eyes, and, programmers probably like that too.
Yeah. The one thing I would say, like Sarah McLachlan, 88, 89, it's CFNY much different at that time, because I'm thinking 96, that the Edge is into harder grunge at the time. But I'd also think that there was also a time, and this is even in the spirit of radio days, that we would present a show by a band that maybe not getting a lot of airplay, but we're still supporting it. And of course, we talk about the feature shows, because there were tracks that you would play on the Import Show, and other tracks like the Headley and Shep would play that don't get maybe a lot of exposure daytime on the station. So Jewel might have been one of those artists that got some play, but not a lot.
And I don't know the ins and outs of it, but there would be, there might have been situations that I don't know who Jewel's manager is off the top of my head, but you might see something going, oh, well, Jewel's manager also manages Beck or Nirvana or something like that. And like, oh, we're good friends with them, so we'll do them a solid or whatever, right? And then later on, you're going, how did that happen, right? So I don't know for sure, but the thing is, Jewel, it didn't hurt anybody, and she was a pretty cool artist for a short period of time, and then it just kind of moved on to other things. So
yeah, fair enough.
Of the moment, right?
Yeah. Let's just finish with the 2000s. We've got 25 years ago, the Exciter album from Depeche Mode was released. That got some mixed reviews, but was also on some best lists that year.
Yeah, I think, again, wasn't one of their absolute best, but I think it stood the test of time quite well, and it seems to, there's a 12-inch box set of that's come out as a reissue. So, there's definitely some tangibility to the whole thing.
Yeah. Also got here and it's interesting. We talked a bit about this before, but the REM free concert at Yonge and Dundas was 25 years ago, May 17th, 2001. I don't remember this, but it was a big deal, as you were saying.
It was huge. It was absolutely huge. And, it was actually done prior to Yonge and Dundas Square being an entity. Yonge and Dundas Square wasn't finished, but it was done in that area.
Okay.
But the logistics of putting those things on are absolutely incredible. The things you got to go through with the city, with permits and shutting streets down and hiring security and just all of the things that have to change to do that. And it cost from what I understand, it was probably somewhere in the range of $200,000 that it cost Warner Music Canada to put that show on. They did a 16-song set out there, and it was a couple of days after their Reveal album had come out. Whether it was a good payback or not, whether it was worth their while, it's those are the sort of things that back then you do go, wow, that was fantastic. And in 2026, you'd get a lot of people upstairs asking questions like, well, what's the payback? What's the quantification? How many streams went up? Back then, it was just kind of like, wow, this is a great album launch thing to do. Right.
It's a good idea. Let's just do it.
It was a great idea, man. I mean, listen, yeah. We did one with John Bon Jovi down at RPM, and they was like, oh, we want to go back and play the clubs or whatever. It's like, oh, great idea. Right. And then next thing I know, there's like 20 tractor trailers driven up from New Jersey because they didn't like the PA system in the club and didn't tell anybody, and sent me the bill. $120,000 at the time, right? So it just,
oh man,
I just couldn't imagine the stress that Warner had on that. But REM were arguably one of the world's biggest bands at the time, so God bless them for doing it.
Yeah, fair enough. And look at this, Ivor. It's been 1 year since your very first show on the bridge.
Hey, listen, this was something that was born out of me retiring and moving to this area. And when I first retired, the good folks, Dave Rivett, Tom Calderon, and William Sauer from the Bridge and PBS took me out to dinner, which was something they didn't have to do, but we were a good client of PBS's, and we had dinner and just were shooting the shit and talked about the Bridge. And I said, well, maybe I can do something for you guys at some point. And William said, yeah, like let's put something together, whatever. And lo and behold, I get my show on the Bridge, and now I'm doing my first anniversary coming up this week. And I did write down the first song that I played, Scott. Yes, it was Substitute by the Sex Pistols. And of course, I love the premise that they have when you listen to the Bridge and they said, we play what we want. And I'm like, okay. So there I am, yes, playing the Sex Pistols, but I played Motorhead on the first song, on my first show too, right? And I didn't hear it directly from the PD, but I did sort of hear through the back door. It's like, there's a little bit of concern about you playing Motorhead on that first show. And I said, you guys said we play what we want. We're college radio for adults. and so I played Motorhead again, and then the note that I got from the PD was like, man, you sure like Motorhead. And I said, and I played them a third time since then too. So anyway, it's been great. Yeah. It's been great so far. And they are our only presenter so far of our CFNY documentary, a radio station presenting something about another radio station. Yeah. So I think that speaks a lot of volumes. They're a great organization, and they are going to be part of that announcement that we're going to be making in Buffalo about further U.S. exposure for our documentary.
Yes. And congratulations on that anniversary. And a lesson for everybody, don't ever tell Ivor something he shouldn't do.
Well, it's just, again, like it's that Keith Elshaw thing that I've talked about when, we got asked on the book, like, who are your top 3 CFNY DJs? And I named Keith Elshaw as one of mine because we'd write all the, when we mark up all the albums, like, here's the best songs, here's the songs that we don't recommend, like, stay away from these songs. The next day I'd walk in the control room and look at all the albums and go, without a doubt, Keith always went for what we considered the worst songs on the album. So he gets respect for that.
I love it. Okay, just to finish off the show, just some concerts this week. You want to roll down just some shows? Anybody? Just a few of our selections that are out there.
couple of things. You got Joe Jackson coming up on the 14th at the Danforth Music Hall. A rare book reading at Toronto Reference Library on the 15th by Richard Hell, of course, of the Voidoids, formerly of television. The Satellites are at Hughes Room. And this is a treat if you, for our parents. God bless our parents. Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, believe it or not, in his 90th year.
What was that album with the whipped cream and other delights or whatever? That was a great record.
Yes, absolutely. Played at many fashion shows at Winslow Secondary School at Coquitlam, BC, by my mom on the fashion committee. Buzzcocks at the Opera House on the 15th, and a second Richard Hell reading on the 16th at the Cotton Factory in Hamilton, put on by my buddy Lou Molinaro.
Okay. Thank you, Ivor. And thanks, everybody, for checking us out. And Ivor, look forward to your...
I do want to mention we have a special guest next week. Let's tee it up that we've got Lee Carter on the program next week.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you. And check our milestones every day on Music Milestones YYZ on our social pages. We're running out of time, so we got to say goodbye. Thank you, Ivor.
Thanks, Scott.